Welcome to the sixth topic of technologies of management, where you will continue learning about data analysis or people analysis and understanding motivation and how can we establish the motivation system, and also learn about yet another drivers of performance employee engagement. Behavioral economics, psychologists, and other social scientists dedicated a greater deal of time to research how monetary incentives influence motivation and quality of work. Though their investigations, they have learned that sometimes standard incentives that should work on an economic man backfire. Many experiments conducted in the 97th and 98th years, then repeated again in 1990s and 2000s, show that in certain settings intrinsic motivation is decreased when intrinsic financial rewards are introduced. This can happen when subjects are paid to do something then they consider a good cause, like giving blood, for example, or when they are just doing something they enjoy doing without being compensated. Imagine you are being paid to sleep at night as long as possible. Would it help you? Or would you be worrying about sleeping as much as possible instead of actually getting a good night's sleep? Some non-monetary tools are free. It is our goal to understand how to use data analysis to choose the tools that would give you the best return on investment in your company. Research has shown that people are motivated by different things depending on various factors. Your employees may have different values and preferences depending on their education and cultural background, age, religion, family status, and many other things. A World Value Survey, for example, shows that people in different countries give different answers regarding what matters most to them in selecting a job. While people in Ukraine really care about compensation, 55% of the Swiss employees say that doing something important is what matters most to them in their job search. So you can see this is a huge difference between financial and non-financial motivation. That means, as it is usual in people analytics, that there is no one-size-fits-all strategy in selecting and motivating and in a motivation strategy. So let's talk about what can be part of non-monetary motivation. Selecting the right tools is a people analytics problem because not all people are motivated by these same things. Understanding your company's culture, what motivates your team, and what increases its productivity should be based on data analysis. If your organization does not have enough data to make predictions before instituting a policy, you could use proxy organization with similar workforce and try to understand what incentives drive their employees' performance. In this is impossible before implementing a policy. It is critical to select metrics which will help you decide whether a certain policy produced the results you expected and whether it paid for itself or not. All too often, companies copy somebody else's best practices without even understanding their own workforce needs, the needs of their employees, and without conducting cost-benefit analysis. PlayStation and Xboxes and an on-site daycare center may be great perks, but not if most of your workforce does not appreciate them or even need them, especially not if they believe that you are underpaying them while spending money on mimicking Google Office. Using focus groups, survey, and connecting the data on non-monetary motivation with other HR metrics, including performance, you would be able to find the tools to contribute to your organizations. After all, it's not just about having fun, it's about contributing a strong organization. And now we talk about motivation tools. There are several specific tools. In non-monetary motivation, we'll be talking about personal development is an important factor for many people and many professionals, and it can be utilized in many ways for any organizations. First, people may care about their status, about their job title. Some jobs can have different names, and the professional may prefer one job over another just based on the name of the position. So they look just on the title of the position. Second, delegating authority. In other ways, empowering people can allow them to achieve high levels of motivation and consequently performance as they feel trust and responsibility. Finally, acquiring new knowledge and skills is yet another important motivating factor and consequently a performance driver. For example, a lot of your professionals choose to start their careers in large consulting companies or large university or very famous schools over high-paying jobs just because they believe they can learn a lot of various useful and highly marketable skills at Big Four, for example. Managing work-life balance has become especially challenging with modern technologies making it hard to distinguish between working and not working. That makes offering flexibility especially valuable for your employees. Flexible work arrangements, telecommunicating, flexible days off, flexible schedules, and etc. can be a matter of importance demonstrating that you care about your employees. Many young professionals would appreciate on-site services, daycare, laundry, even a hair salon, even a gym club. That solves a lot of their small problems and improves loyalty and motivation, and even gives your employees more time to think about work issues, not household matters. Working environments with commutable, comfortable working conditions and uh, conditions, and the chance to have some fun in the workplace is also very important in contemporary organization. Creating comfortable psychological and cultural environments is a crucial success factor in non-monetary motivation. This is a big part of non-monetary motivation. People care about their emotions, about their feelings, even if they pretend and even they believe they don't. Appreciation is a very important feeling that should never be underestimated. There are numerous symbolic gestures that can demonstrate to your employees how much you value their efforts, and they come at virtually no cost. Things like free foods, birthday balloons, lunches with your boss, parking spots, corporate sponsors events, and even simply standing ovation can make a difference. Then the result is the change to contribute and a feeling of belongingness. So something important may be driving your employees' performance. Sometimes they feel excited about those things and they do care about it. Just give them the chance. Many the tools described above except the most materialistic ones. Only work if they are authentic. Standard ovations, staff meetings, it has to be sincere. You cannot mimic it. Appreciating from your boss can offer it with a fake smile. It would show that this stuff is just something formal that you read from employee motivation manual or learned at the recent HR training. It is hard for people to fake or mimic someone else. Companies can't do this either. We have to be sincerely with our employees. And now we begin to consider engagement. Employee engagement is a very talked about topic. Yet it is hard to define. There are multiple definitions that mainly describe a connection of employees. In numerous employee outcomes includes turnover and performance reflect the degree to which employees are engaged. For example, business units with the highest levels of employee engagement have an 83% change of performing above the company median, while those with the lowest employee engagement have only a 70% chance. 17% chance. Sorry. Engagement supporting actions include making sure employees and includes three components. Understand how their departments contribute to the company's success. See how their own effort contribute to achieving the company's goals. And get a sense of accomplishment from working at the firm. There are multiple ways of measuring engagement. For example, Gallup suggests using 12 simple questions. And you can see this question divided on the four groups. 12 simple questions measuring to which extent an employee know what is expected from him. And you can see this is question about growth, teamwork, individual and basic needs. Overall, that allows to know about indeed a connection between employee and organization. However, the most important part of measuring engagement is, of course, analyzing its dynamic. By analyzing how engagement changes over time and analyzing factors contributing to it, a manager can suggest improvements in behaviors and processes that would contribute to increased performance. A measuring process would normally include anonymous employee surveys, analyzing the result and verifying initial hypotheses via focus groups, and then presenting the results and potential measures for improvement. Just as with measurement, there are multiple ways of increasing employee engagement. The most important one deals, of course, with educating managers of how they can better assist employees in effective collaboration with their peers and the organization as a whole. That includes relative simple things as providing feedback on a timely basis, and more sophisticated issues including the use of new technologies. New technologies also proved an important factor driving engagement. For example, smartphones that allow constant immediate access to email and messaging system increase engagement as they allow rapid information in change in the organization. Mobile and web applications that allow employee interaction and information exchange as well as online collaboration are yet another driver of engagement. Many online platforms allow multi-user storage and addition of documents free of charge, such as, for example, Google Docs. And there are also multiple online project management tools that contribute to better information exchange, so that team members are aware of what is going on in parallel terms, parallel team. Internet social networks and localized social networks applications contribute to the same objective as they allow users to interact informally and friendly relations is in a company and believed to be an important factor of performance. One of the technologies that could boost employee engagement is Yammer. It allows to register all employees of a single company in a single social network, effectively communicate and share information. It is cross-platform and it could be connected to your email. Process gamification is yet another driver of engagement, as it essentially turns business processes into fun. Gamification stands for employing game design elements into non-game context. That could include some kind of competition, collecting reward points from fellow employees for assisting them, and etc. But, as one gamification company intelligently put it, gamification is not about games. It should be noted that it's not even about fun. It's about understanding the compelling aspects of game that engage people and social game means and applying them to something practical. It's about ROI, non-monetary motivation, and engagement are far more important than most people think. Moreover, with the proper analytics, they may be among the most beneficial in terms of return on investment if you want to retain your employees and improve their performance. And now we begin to study about workforce planning analytics. This is a seventh topic in which dedicate to recruiting. Recruiting can be both fun and exhausting, but as cliche as it may sound, it is always the most important process in any business. In this topic, we will cover the basics of workforce planning analytics, recruiting technologies, and candidate assessment tools. Basically, workforce planning encompasses everything the organization does to identify its talent needs now and in the future in terms of skills, numbers, quality, etc. Assess how internal and external events can affect those needs. Predict turnover and plan talent sourcing to satisfy organizational needs. Analytics boils down to being able to incorporate and integrate internal and external data to beyond traditional workforce planning, which emphasizes head count. Head count. Workforce planning analytics look at strategic and operational business metrics, behavioral and engagement data, uncovers hidden causes and attribution, absenteeism, low performance, and so on. Proper workforce analytics is future-oriented and prescriptive in nature, informing recruiting and development strategy decisions. Many enterprise analytics platforms provide comprehensive talent analytics which include all aspects of human capital management and integrate which with finance and performance metrics. Most small companies cannot afford such systems and even for large companies, integration can take a long time. Being honest to the promise of making this course as practical as possible, we will talk further about some of the things you can do quickly and gain insight into intuition, recruiting, and planning your talent needs. And you can see on this picture the top changes in workplace planning. And at the first position, it's lack of tools and technology to execute the process in the organization, and no defined methodology or business process. And um, also very big problem with inability to correlate business strategy with workforce requirements. And in this picture you can see analytics maturity progression that consists of four stages with analytics hopes, analytic doors, and analytic users, and finally analytic competitor. At the first stage, we get data right, and answer on such a question is like or and ask organization, do the organization have good data to work with? If not, what we must to do improve it? Do the company do I have the people in place to perform analytics, and do I have the necessary technologies? Next stage is create context. If we perform the first stage, we next should find out can we aggregate and structure data in a usable way? Do we have people experience in analytics? Do key metrics now have a story around them? And finally, is there a growing demand for insight? After this stage, we move to the next stage and use insight. And there we ask organization, do we have an on-demand analytics platform? Are those doing analytics influencing change and insights being used in the field, and dashboarding meaningful metrics being used, or KPIs? And next and final, this is operationalize insight. Insight is repeatedly used to formulate HR and business strategy. Is repeatedly used by managers in the field and is obtained quickly and accurately from an on-demand platform. Uh, this is a starting point which would help you uncover what skills you need to develop and what skills you need to buy. Having regular skill and competency assessment and individual and team development plans tied to business objectives would help you understand what you currently have. So there are various ways to predict attrition. We have three ways: historic data analysis, pattern analysis, and application and external data analysis. So one way is to use historical data. Another is to apply data analysis to historic data to identify patterns which lead to employees uh, quitting, and then apply these patterns to the existing population. There are various ways to predict attrition. One way is to use historic data, as I said, and another is to apply data analysis to historic data to identify patterns which lead to employees getting, and then apply these patterns to the existing population. So also, as I would, as I said, and then apply these patterns to the existing population. Ideally, your system would continuously monitor this data to highlight employees that are at risk at living at organizational team and individual levels. Moreover, an advanced analytic engine would also analyze which measures were successful in retaining the top performance and high potential employees. And finally, some systems like Jobrate analyze external data, include social media and networking system to provide a so-called job-seeking behavior stories, which gives the probability that someone is looking for a job. Using Jobrate like and tools like that could be accessible to SMEs as much both in terms of the cost and in the terms of the amount of data. Because it utilizes its own algorithm and big data, it would work even if you are trying to access job seeking behaviors or just one employees. Building your pattern model to identify potential quitters or paying for tools developed by companies like SAS or Visa might be more expensive, but may pay for itself given your cost of replacement. And now we talk about replacement cost. Before making decision on how much to invest in retaining your employees, both in terms of retention measures and investment in expensive predictive analytics, it makes sense to understand what your replacement costs are. Oftentimes, managers think that replacement costs are limited to recruiting costs. For example, paying for executive search firm or posting at crane list and so on. However, the greatest part of replacement costs are associated with time devoted to identifying, interviewing, selecting, and onboarding potential employees. And with lost productivity almost always resulting from the need for a new employee to reach your potential. Even if you find a replacement before the incumbent leaves and has the ability to train the newcomer. On top of that, there are elements which are extremely hard to quantify, like expertise and organizational or cultural knowledge that your employee takes with you when she leaves. And team dynamics that breaks up when one of the critical links are missing. Uh, Greg Willard from Boston-based Concrete gives a great overview of most costs associated with employee turnover on the Euromedia website. Replacement cost analysis, though, is never complete without proper risk assessment. Retention investment has to be allocated with the risk of losing someone who is valuable to the company is high. In the most basic term, which would be much more complex in real life, it should be noted to set, your decision making would be based on comparing the product of replacement cost times risk of losing the employee. This is where predictive analytics plays a crucial role. Recruiting can take many forms depending on company size, growth patterns, and the skills it required. In this topic, we will talk about mostly recruiting technologies that would apply both to small and large companies. Um, it should be noted that regardless of the company size, the recruiting process includes the following: defining job or roles descriptions, sourcing and identifying candidates, engaging candidates, filtering applications, and assessing candidates, though interviews, tests, assessment centers, and onboarding candidates. And now talking about recruitment funnel. A recruitment funnel. Firstly, I would like to say that employee recruiting, this is finding and or attracting applicants for the employer's open position. Recruitment funnels applies to the process from sourcing to selecting the final candidates who accept the offer. And you can see in this picture. It varies from organization to organization, but making sure your funnel is as effective as possible is an important quantitative task. This will generally mean analyzing two key dimensions: recruiting channels and selection tools. Um, Channels are ways you reach to your potential candidates, just like you would reach out to clients in marketing and advertising. Almost all applicant tracking systems have a built-in channel analytics tool. That includes those serving um, small businesses like, for example, greenbowhouse.io or Lever, as well as job marketing and distribution system. If you do not use any of these systems, you should be able to analyze channel data with Excel or statistical software of your choice, depending on the complexity of analysis you want to get. Channel analytics is critical to evaluate the effectiveness of your recruitment strategy overall, the comparing channel effectiveness. Uh, I should say that very often HR departments compare channels based on the number of successful individual candidates and cost per channel. This approach, however, criticized and rightfully so. Imagine that you attract 100 applicants for 3 positions with 20% of them responding to your job and on LinkedIn. And as you can see, LinkedIn. 10 coming from social referrals platform via your current employees, and 40% apply directly from your website, and 30 they approached directly by your recruiters. In the end, you hire one person who was referred and two people who were identified and approached by your recruiters directly. If we rely on this only, you would probably have to invest all your resources in recruiters and social referrals. But you may also look deeper and consider which channels contributed to the final 10 candidates that make it to the final interview round and were positively assessed by interviewers. You may find that some 3 candidates came directly on the website and 2 responded to LinkedIn ads. This means that these channels are actually contributing to the selection pool. You might then go on to analyze why none of them were hired. Maybe your selection process was over-emphasizing and justifiable or not. Internal recommendation, or maybe recruiters are too eager to push their candidates they found themselves because that's the way the motivation system works. You would also use channel analytics to figure out which message works better to attract the best candidates, especially so in their online advertising campaigns. Job boards and professionalized messages via professional networks like LinkedIn. Finally, if you want to truly measure the return on investment on your recruitment channels, you have to consider performance of your hires, their impact on the organization overall. And now we start to talk about selection tools. Candidates candidate selection tools or evaluation tools can both help her to recruiting efforts. This can happen because they would filter out greater candidates, or because greater candidates might not like investing their time and energy into time-consuming application and evaluation processes. A typical selection process would often include some sort of job application where the candidate would submit his or her resume, cover letter, writing, and work samples, and answer some additional questions. After that, she would go through an evaluation which could include tests and assignments, psychological or skill-based assess, sample projects, preliminary interviews by phone or video. And depending on how rigorous the process, the next step could include group interviews, behavioral interviews, case study interviews, assignment centers, and so on. At some point in the process, work references are collected and checked. Needless to say, the best evaluation process maximizes decision speed and decision quality. This make quantifying predictive power of selection tools a must. One of the biggest problems in recruitment, which leads to both slow and suboptimal decision, is human bias. Whether consciously or subconsciously, people tend to fall victim to a range of cognitive biases, which we discussed in the topic where we considered the performance management topic. Using algorithmic method helps eliminate human biases, but requires requires a lot of expert input to teach machines to properly analyze resumes and other background information, or to force or incentivize humans to follow evaluation and interview guidelines to minimize biases. This picture, for example, you can see SAP, Microsoft, and other tech giants saw that employees with high functioning form of autism include Asperger's syndrome make great coders. However, candidates with autism failed in-person interviews consistently. In order to solve the problem, they had to make sure their recruiting practices do not filter out such candidates, very important candidates. In a classic study published by Schmidt and Hunter in 1998, which was actually cited by Laszlo Bock, who led people operation at Google. In his recent book, Work Rules, the authors analyzed predictive validity of various evaluation techniques. And they found out that work sample tests obviously general mental abilities scored, and structured interviews provide the best validity. In the time of data analysis, however, one can find other tools that predict employee performance better for their specific company. Various organization excitements with biographic data which have been found to correlate with great performance. Those organizations that experience a diligence of applications use resume, present and semantic analysis technology to identify this biographic data to filter out candidates that do not fit. Other organizations experiment with getting rid of resumes completely, like Xerox, after finding out that personality makes a great call center employee, not his or her resume. Companies like Good.co help assess culture fit to predict whether someone would be able to integrate effectively into an organizational team, because culture fit has been shown to correlate with better performance. And I hope you enjoyed this topic. There is no cookie cutter recruitment recipe, fortunately, for any organization, and every successful organization is different and requires a unique set of people, and you should know about this feature. And what you can do is use the data to understand what unique set of people is the best for your organization. And let's start to talking about next lecture about development in human analytics. So, development. You will learn about selecting and structuring training and development programs, as well evaluating their effectiveness. Training and development is one of the key components of human capital management and an important part of human resource expenses. Huge companies spend some 200 billion dollars annually on educational programs, for example, General Electric alone, for example, spends approximately 1 billion annually. How can we understand what, when, and how to teach our employees? What would be the best time and budget allocation? Corporate education learning needs come from organizational performance indicators. Depending on performance, there can always be some space for improvements. And in this final topic, you will learn how you should approach designing training and development program and evaluating their outcomes. And we start from learning needs. Generally, even training program consists of several components. First, assessing learning needs. For example, you may need to improve project management skills to improve performance. 2. Clearly defining learning objectives. For example, the program participants are expected to learn and master certain specific new skills. 3. Organizing and running the training program itself. I mean individual assessment. Does the employee have the necessary skills, and what training would be for the employee to acquire the necessary skills? 4. Evaluating program outcomes in terms of learning the results and business performance change. And finally, 5. Making adjustment to the program to improve learning outcomes and return on investment, and perhaps further learning improvements. Assessing the learning needs based on business objectives is the first step is in putting together a development program. And there are 3 steps in the process. The first step is organizational assessment. The second step, this is task assessment, and the third step is individual assessment. This type assessment, organizational, analyzes the effectiveness of the organization as a whole and identifies any discrepancies. It is used to uncover competences, knowledges, and skills that are needed by the company to bridge the gaps. Organizational assessment should also take into account external factors such as economy, environmental policies, technological advancement, change in workforce demographics, and etc. These assessments determine whether training is needed, how it will be conducted, and when. Organizational assessments answer two critical development planning questions. First, where in the organization is training most required? 2. Will the training be effective if implemented, meaning will it actually fill the gaps? After all, if your company purchased an airplane and there are no pilots in your organization, it is probably reasonable to hire one, not to train one of your staff member to get a license. Step number 2, task assessment. The task assessment gathers information about a particular job functions or occupational group in your company. This analysis focuses on the key tasks, competences, and skills required to perform the job at the most efficient level. Using job descriptions, skill analysis, and job inventory questionnaires, these assessments are used to discover specific training needs. This type of analysis is particularly used if an organization is moving in a new direction or undergoing restructuring. Again, the assessment is used to determine if there are any gaps between existing competences and those needed to improve performance. Task assessment answers the following planning question. What skills um, and behavioral must be acquired in this job function? And final step number three, this individual assessment. The individual assessment focuses on a particular employee to discover how well they are performing. This type of assessment determines the individual's existing skills and competences, design style, and capacity for new work. The individual analysis identifies who within the organization requires training and what kind of training is needed. And such methods as 360-degree evaluations are useful as individual assessments since they identify the employee's strengths and area for improvement. With regards to competences, skills, and behaviors, the individual assessment form the basis for creating a customized training and development plan for the employee. These assessments answer the following key development question. As I said before about this question, does the employee have the necessary skills, and what training would be for this employee to acquire the necessary skills? So, observation of the behavior demonstrated at the workplace is a very important instrument of assessing improvement needs. And it is also important to relate knowledge levels. And now talking about designing training programs. Training programs need to have a schedule of activities with training goals, learning objectives, subject areas, methods, trainers, assessments, location, technologies, and other things. Learning objectives and audiences are the most important part that essentially determines the rest. At this stage, number one, training objective, you need to decide what kind of employees by role or function you are training and what they need to learn. This includes skills, how training is conducted, what proficiency the employer needs to train, Depending on the audience and learning objectives, you select learning technologies. That includes seminars, case studies, simulations, and another very important things. And the next step is evaluating training program outcomes. Training program outcomes. Donald Kirkpatrick suggests 4 levels of learning evaluation, and there are 4 levels: reaction, learning, behavior, and result. And please look at this picture where you can see more detail this model. Level 1 is reaction. It measures how employees feel about the trainings. This level measures how your trainee reacted to the training. Obviously, you want them to feel that the training was a valuable experience, and you want them to feel good about the instructor, the topic, the material, the presentation, and the venue. An easy way to measure reaction is using evaluation forms. Usually they include questions that help get answers to the following. Next question. Did the trainees feel that the training was worth their time? Did they think that it was successful? That was the biggest strength of the training and its biggest weaknesses. Did they like the venue and presentation style? Did the training session accommodate their personal learning style? Measuring reaction is important because it helps understand how well the training was received by your audience. And I would like to say that it also helps you improve the training for future trainees, including identifying important areas or topic that you are missing from the training. Move on next level. This is learning. It measures whether employees learn new skills or knowledge in the training process. How much has their knowledge increased as a result of the training? When you plan the training session, you hopefully started with a list of very specific learning objectives. This should be a starting point for your measurement. Keep in mind that you can measure learning in different ways, depending on these objectives, and depending on whether you are interested in changes in knowledge, skills, or attitude. That can be measured, for example, with tests or interviews. It's important to measure this because knowing what your trainees are learning and what they are not learning will help you improve future training. Level 3 is behavior. It measures whether demonstrated behavior changed as a result of the training. It may very well be true that we have the knowledge about proper behavior, but do not necessarily demonstrate those. One of the best ways to measure behavior is to conduct observations and interviews over time. Also keep in mind that behavior will only change if conditions are favorable. If the overall organization culture is not set up for any behavioral changes, the trainers might not be able to apply what they have learned. And level 4, this is results. It measures whether the change in behavior led to better business results. Usually that could be done with evaluating actual or expected changes in performance. Other metrics may also include increased employee retention, reduced waste, increase in sales, high quality rating, fewer staff complaints, and so on. And as conclusion, however, in the end, it is still performance and subsequently return on investment that could be the best for development programs. And at the end of our course, we talk about ROI calculation. There is extensive evidence that smart investment in training and development is beneficial for an organization. In the United States, for example, companies that have corporate universities have a 9% better stock dynamic than the overall market. However, how do we actually know whether a specific program is effective, is efficient? We can calculate the return on investment is relatively easy and a very helpful tool to make sure that development programs actually contribute to your achieving your organization and goal. The calculation itself is relatively simple. First, you calculate the cost of the program per employee. That includes the direct cost of training, allocation, etc. And second, you should calculate the time value of employees. And you can see in this picture the example of calculation return on investment formula. That should include not just the compensation they receive for the time, but the value they would add that would be missing because of the training. Depending on the category of employees you design training for, that is likely to be the most expensive part of the training program. Also, do not forget that the value of your own time spent on designing and the program. Third, you calculate the value of training program created for the company. That can be done by measuring change in business and performance and estimating the money value of the change for your organization. That is your program value. And finally, you subtract the program costs from the program value to get the net program value, and you divide it by the program cost. That is your return on investment, ROI. ROI. You can increase it by further improving the effectiveness of the training so that you can have a greater positive influence on your organization. And now, having learned how simple and practical that is, can you believe that most organizations are actually still not doing it? That was the last topic in the technologies of management, and I would like to say you thank you for staying with us till the end, and we really hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did, and that is very useful information for you. Thank you and goodbye.